All right, how's everybody doing tonight? John and I are here. We're just we figured John is working very late, and we figured we'll try to stream whenever we get the chance. And this is the time that John can stream, so that's why we have a little bit of an odd time for my channel. But we see some of the regulars here. Vaz is here, and George is here. We got a number of people in the chat. So I wanted actually to talk a little bit about Pulp Fiction just to begin with, John, just because I've been thinking a lot about this. I'm thinking a lot about Conan stories. I always think about Conan stories. But do you have a favorite Pulp Fiction character?
I've always liked the Shadow, even though I've never read any of the novels, because my father liked the Shadow, and we listened to a couple of radio things, while driving in a car. But I started reading Doc Savage, the novels. I went on eBay and I won like an auction of like 5 Doc Savage. So I started reading them, and now I'm furious because they're not. I got the first novel, and then I assumed that they were in chronological order, but they weren't. So, but the Doc Savage, it doesn't matter what order you read them. So by default, Doc Savage, because I read the novels, but I want to get the Shadow. I don't know if Gladiator counts, Philip Wiley's Gladiator. That's the novel that inspired Superman. So Gladiator, I guess, is a favorite pulp. I mean, does Lovecraft count as pulps? You know what I mean? They were in the pulp magazines. Yeah, all of those. But
the thing about the Shadow is that he is not only the character that has the most works written about him. The works of the Shadow are by far the most numerous works of any character or any subject in all of fiction.
Yeah, what's his name? William Gibson. He wrote like a novel a week or something like that.
Yeah, it's massive amounts. Because like you, I always tell the story, but I used to go to the library and get the records for the Shadow and listen to those, the old radio plays for the Shadow. So yeah, I love the Shadow. A lot of people don't like the 80s version of the Shadow that came out, what was his name that did the movie? I actually liked it.
Yeah, I gotta watch it again. I saw it in the movies when it came out, and I was disappointed, and I never saw it again. My biggest takeaway was Alec Baldwin looked perfect, but there was something about, and this was before I hated Alec Baldwin, but Penelope Ann Miller was not Margot Kane. Penelope Ann Miller, she's so cute and adorable and wholesome, and I'm sorry, RJ, but there's something about the Shadow and Margot Kane's relationship that's a little bit dirtier than Lois Lane.
You just remember Penelope Ann Miller from what is Adventures in Babysitting? That's what you're thinking about.
Was she in that? Because
the
babysitter was Elizabeth Shue.
Yeah, but she was the friend character that got stuck in I think it was in New York subway or something like train station, and she had to go rescue her.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen. That's another movie. I saw that once on HBO when it first was released, and that was about it. I gotta watch that again.
Tony has a question about my thoughts on the design for the new Joker. I don't even know if I've seen designs for the new Joker, quite honestly, Tony.
Yeah, I'll find it and I'll bring it up. It's I don't know. My thoughts on the Absolute line is they're not. It's just a cash grab. It's not Superman. It's not Batman. It's not Wonder Woman. It's just, you know what I mean? Make new characters. Absolutely.
George also says there's a Shadow movie with the guy from Silence of the Lambs. Really? Okay. I don't even know about that.
I don't know. Is there another one?
Yes, that Adventures in Babysitting. Is that not what I said, George? I don't know. Sometimes my mouth and my brain don't connect. Yes. But the Penelope Ann Miller Shadow with Alec Baldwin is the one that I'm talking about. In case anybody's wondering, that I actually, because I'd already been introduced to the Shadow at that time, and I was hoping that it would do well. But, it's one of those. Honestly, I honestly think to myself that if it had come out in a different time when they're like, let's say now, with as good a movie as it was, it would have done much better. It just had so much competition.
I remember liking the Phantom and Zorro. All of those characters came out around the same time, I guess, and the Rocketeer. Flash Gordon would count, if you ask me.
Yep. I see.
Little used newspaper. Here, if you share my screen, this is the new Absolute Joker.
Oh, crying out loud. So basically, he's what, Venom?
I don't know.
That's what it looks like.
I don't know. Don't care is really my thoughts. It's like, oh, he's 6'6" and he's blonde and he works for the carnival. Then he ain't Batman. You know, at what point is the character not the character? You know, like he's Superman, but he's an escaped slave from Krypton who fled to Earth or whatever. That's not Superman. You know, it's Moses, but instead of being the son of the Pharaoh, he's a Mayan and he invented a rocket ship. It's not Moses. You know, it come up with a new character, but whatever. I love Tarzan Zorro. Oh, I'm reading it like it's my channel. I'm sorry. Yeah, I love all those movies.
One of the ones you talked about, Zorro, which is funny because I used to, like, let's say high school time, I would watch the late movie. This would be back in the day when your channel would go off the air, right?
Right.
And the last thing that would be on would be the late movie. It would start about 12, and then the whole thing would go off, 1:30ish. But I would always watch Zorro movies. Well, a lot of them were older British movies, but there'd be a lot of Zorro, and Scarlet Pimpernel was also mixed in with those kinds of things, which I always felt was kind of like the French version of Zorro in a weird way.
Yeah, he was first. I actually ordered the Scarlet Pimpernel novel. I'm trying to read all of the novels that inspired all the superheroes. And they say that the Scarlet Pimpernel is probably the first which qualifies as a superhero in that he had a disguise. You know, he was like a fop in real life. I forget if it was British or French royalty. And then at night he would dress up as the Scarlet Pimpernel and avenge crimes. So, I got to read it. It's written by a woman, I think. I forgot her name, but yeah, I ordered it. The book's around here someplace.
Rex is asking what I think about the multiverse trope. I think I did an entire video on that, Rex, basically saying it's lazy writing because it's what they're trying to bring it into now is meta modernism, is that everything is true, therefore nothing is true, because everything would happen and nothing would happen at the same time. And it is nihilism. You're correct. So
I mean, that you're always a higher level thinker than I am, but I just look at it. There's no consequences. It's like, Iron Man died. Okay, we're just going to bring out the Iron Man from another dimension. Then it's like, then doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
County Monte Cristo. That's interesting. I never knew that, Rex. If Zorro was inspired by that, but again, you get the whole, because Zorro is definitely Spanish, whereas Count of Monte Cristo is what, Italian?
The Count of Monte Cristo, isn't that written by Dumas?
I don't know. I've never read Count of Monte Cristo, quite honestly.
I read Ivanhoe. That was excellent.
RJ, what is your favorite Tarzan adaptation? Greystoke. Yes, I was just going to say Greystoke would probably be my favorite. That being said, it's mostly because I loved the Highlander series so much, and you had the same guy playing the Highlander as he did playing Greystoke, Tarzan. So that probably affected it a little bit.
That's not the one with Bo Derek, is it?
No, not that I'm aware of. I don't know who the female lead is in that one off the top of my head, but I don't think it was Bo Derek.
I'm trying to remember. That was like the big
Christopher Lambert. Yes, that's what it was.
Oh yeah, yeah. Then it's not. Man, it's not the one I'm thinking of. The Bo Derek one came out in the mid '80s, and it was just like an excuse for her to be naked. I should check out the Dr. Sid novels. They were adopted from the early '60s by Walt Disney as the Scarecrow with Patrick McGoohan. Oh wow, I love Patrick McGoohan.
Really?
Yeah,
I love Patrick McGoohan too. I mean, it's just I've never known this. So, as Scarecrow with Patrick McGoohan.
Yeah, I got to check that out. Thank you. Oh, Tony, this is right up his alley, man. He knows the pulps.
I love The Prisoner. Prisoner was when I was in high school, I loved The Prisoner because it would be on like Saturday after Star Trek or something like that, and I'd watch The Prisoner. And I had this English teacher who, when he found out my love for The Prisoner, he loved it as well, and he actually went to go see there is an actual village in England, which is the village. And he
Right.
went to go see it, and he brought me back all of this paraphernalia and all these, and like a number 6 pin and all that kind of stuff.
I don't know. The older I get, the more I'm like, you know what? If I woke up in the village, I'd be like, I could live here. You know, there's no crime. There's no people get lit on fire in the subways. You know, I don't have to wake up for work. I can live. Yeah. So what? So I gotta, you know, I don't know what number would be. I'll be 47. 47 is a good number. I'll be 47. The food looks good. They all have hot maids. I'm perfectly happy with the village. You know, they're all walking around with big umbrellas. Good day, sir. Good day. That's like a dream nowadays.
Yeah, actually, that would be a good story, John.
Yeah. In heroic tales, the patriarch wakes up in the village. He's like, "This is nice."
What was meant to be torture in the 1960s would be heaven in the 2025.
I know. Yeah. Dumas. He wrote Ivanhoe. I thought he wrote Count Crisco and the Three Musketeers. He also wrote the Man in the Iron Mask, I think. Yeah.
George says he also wrote Three Musketeers.
Yeah. Elseworlds worked better. Yeah, this comment, Vaz. Elseworlds worked better as a multi. Right. What I liked about the Elseworlds, and it's basically the same as the What Ifs, is there were nice, interesting little. Okay, this is a cool little twist on a story, but it didn't matter. Now, you know, it's like what if Gwen Stacy was Spider-Man? Well, now we have 16 Spider-Man comic books featuring Gwen Spider, and you know. And you know, and every Spider, it was good when it was like Jane Foster had the Hammer of Thor. And what is it, like number 2 or something like that? That was interesting. And then we moved on and whatever. But now it's everybody's Thor and everybody's Spider-Man, and there's nothing unique about Spider-Man anymore. What was cool about What If was you know, you knew you were never going to see it again. You know,
the thing was with the What If, I bought probably all the What If when they redid it in the 80s, but they honestly, to my way of thinking, I was so attracted to it because of the 70s What Ifs, and there were only a couple of hits there, but there were enough hits within the 70s first volume of What If to make me buy the entire second volume, even though it kept disappointing me over and over again.
And if you read those What Ifs, they usually ended in like the death of somebody, you know, like they were really sad. Like what if the Avengers didn't form, and then Tony Stark made like other people Avengers, and he gave them all Iron Man suits, and they all got killed. It was like, oh man, you know. Jane Foster becomes Thor, and she ends up giving up the hammer and marrying Thor and living in Asgard. You know, like they were like stories that Marvel couldn't tell because they knew that they had to have a final ending, because these characters were just one-offs, so they could give them a definitive end, and it was like sad and satisfying at the same time. Most of the Elseworlds were the same thing, you know. What you know, an Elseworld where Wonder Woman and Superman were married and they had super kids, and it was a fun little explanation. Yeah, I'm not a man, I'm a number.
Just to let everybody know, in case they don't know this, but if you've been around my channel, you probably do. There is an unpublished, or was unpublished, I think it's published now, Jack Kirby adaptation of the first couple of shows of the Prisoner, which is beautiful.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. Yeah, I'm surprised that you like The Prisoner, because did you ever? That last episode is the most psychedelic thing I've ever seen. Him and the other guy on the seesaw, and then the midgets driving around. You know what I mean? And they don't answer anything. It was just bizarre. But there was 19 episodes, and I got to say, like 17 of those episodes, a couple of them were just too bizarre even for me, were really brilliant. Like my favorite one was The Chimes of Big Ben. Do you know that one?
If you explain the plot, I would. But
he meets a beautiful 60s woman who I think women peaked in the 60s. Oh my God. I would love it if my wife came home looking like Marilyn, what's her name? Mary Tyler Moore, you know, that kind of look. But she's like, she's new and she's going through everything, and he's assigned to help her. Meanwhile, she's in on it because it's the village, and she comes up with a plan to escape, and they escape, and they're in the train, and he's in a coffin, and they're on the train, and he hears the chimes of Big Ben, and then he realizes it's all a scam. And he goes, okay, it's over with. It's a trick. And they just open up, and the girl drops her facade, lights up, like she's all sweet. And she lights up a cigarette, becomes like a bad girl instantly. And like the walls come down like it was a train, but then you saw it was all a set, and everything collapses. Everybody gets up. And then number 2 comes out and he goes, how did you know it was? He goes, because I was in the coffin like this, and my watch didn't sync up with Big Ben. And, that's how he totally bought it until that point. He actually thought he was escaping. It was.
The reason why I think I love the series so much is partly because, it's a continuation of basically Secret Agent Man,
right.
Which was a great show, if you ask me. But the whole idea of Secret Agent Man and sort of like detective novels is you follow along and you try to piece it together. Whereas this is, we're trying to drive you insane because you're trying to piece it together.
Right.
That's why I think it works so well, and why I would still be gravitate towards it. It's like, yes, this is crazy and you might not be able to follow it, but that's kind of the point. They're trying to drive him crazy.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. As far as I know, did he ever explain why he retired?
No.
Right. Yeah. So for anybody who doesn't know what we're talking about, it was a British TV show, and it was unofficially a continuation of Secret Agent Man. It was Patrick McGowan was Secret Agent Man. That show, and British TV shows have an end. They don't just keep on going until the ratings kill them. They do 1 or 2 seasons. That's it. And then the follow-up season, the opening credits is him resigning, and he's resigning in anger. And then he goes home. He gets hit in the face with some gas. He wakes up in the village, and then the show starts. And every episode is literally a freak out. Like, you don't know who's in on it. Like, is people spying? Like, there's other people trying to escape, and then does he help them because they're really in on it, but they might not be in on it? It's like just paranoia. The town, it really is a freak out, and I do recommend it. It's a lot of fun, especially if RJ says if you sit there and you watch it with it. Like me, I'm a nitpicker, so that show is a nitpicker's delight because you just every person you're like, is that person in on it? And that person's in, and you're trying to second guess everybody. It's so good. Talk secrets, Statesy.
Tony says, I think he meant to say Airboy.
Yeah. Yeah, I liked Airboy too. Very bizarre. I got introduced to Airboy from Chuck Dixon. I just happened to pick it up because it was like 50 cents at a time when comic books were $1.25. So, and it came out weekly or bi-monthly, and it was half the size. So my comic book store was like, just buy it. I think he ordered too many. Just buy it. And I was hooked.
Rex says he thinks Michael Moorcock first explored the multiverse, and he treated it like a cosmos with structure and purpose. Okay. Yeah.
Michael Moorcock, he's famous for Elric of Melnibone or
okay.
Melibdene, however you pronounce it. I always say Melnibone, but I know I'm saying it wrong. But I say everything wrong. And he had the Eternal Champion, and the Eternal Champion existed across all dimensions of his multiverse. It was like Coram, Hawkmoon, Urxos, Jerry Cornelius, and I know that there's Count Brass, and there's more and more, and they were all the same being separated through the multiverse. And every once in a while, they would unite into this like almost like Hindu god with multiple faces and everything like that. Very true.
I never actually got to explore this very much, but I remember running across a video where someone said that Ehrlich was basically someone trying to continue on like a Tolkien elf in a different universe.
Right. Supposedly, it was a response to Tolkien's fantasy that he wanted to do everything completely different from, because you're going to write fantasy. It's you're going to be compared to Tolkien. So I think like he was just like, well, as a challenge, I'm going to be as different from Tolkien as possibly can. And I think he succeeded in that. Rex says he's the anti-Conan. So yes, Elric he basically is an elf. He's this albino human, but his race is human, although they do have demon blood. That's like a big point. they have a common and they rule an empire. But he's an albino. There's something wrong with him. He's a genetic defect, and he's extremely weak, and he's sickly, and he needs these medicines and herbs and stuff to keep him alive. And then he gets Stormbringer, and Stormbringer is an evil sword, and when he hits people with it, he sucks out their soul, and the sword gets a portion of it, and he gets a portion of it. So he gets more powerful the more people he kills. And the sword has a bloodlust. So the sword has a will of its own. And when Elric's rather weakened or emotional or whatever, the sword has killed his lover, it killed other people, it killed people that it didn't want him to kill. So it always bothered me in the Dungeons, Dragons, Deities, and Demigods. I said Elric is chaotic evil. But I reread the first 6 novels. To me, those are the only Elric novels. The other ones just aren't the same. He's actually pretty good, but there's this demon sword that's forcing him to do all the evil stuff. Yeah. Also, the Eternal Champ was Morcock saying, what if every hero is actually the same guy? But what I liked about his version of the multiverse is every dimension was completely different. So even if Elric went to the other dimensions, which they did, it wasn't just Elric from another dimension. It was Urkos and Hawkmoon and Corum and all these other characters, completely different personality. Calling them the same character was kind of just like, all right, I'll take your word for it. They're the same person because they had different personalities, different powers, different skills.
Tony has firsthand knowledge about the pronunciation.
Melon Bonnet. Okay, Melon Bonnet. I'll take your word for it. Yeah. Yeah, so he was the anti-Conan.
Which is funny because
I agree with Rex. Long story short, Morcock has the right idea when it comes to the approaching the multiverse. If I may talk a little bit about my world building in my comic book, Heroic Tales, Longbox Comics, there is a multiverse. There's other dimensions, but I borrow a lot from Dungeons & Dragons. I always say my comics are superheroes, Dungeons & Dragons, and H.P. Lovecraft mixed together. And there's ultimate chaos over here. There's ultimate order over here, just like in Dungeons & Dragons. So where your universe falls on the spectrum, you can't possibly be on top of each other because then you'd be the same universe. So one universe has to be slightly closer to chaos and farther away. So the laws of physics are slightly different. You know, a universe over here is all order, and a universe over here is all chaos. But we're right smack in the middle, Goldilocks. So, but if you're over here a little bit, you lean a little bit towards order. So there's, you know what I mean? So you can't possibly replicate the same position. So there's going to be only one RJ from the Fourth Age. There's only going to be one Tony Grigo. There's only going to be one Rex Blazer. If you go to the other universe over, you might not even recognize that you're on the Earth because the Earth might not even exist because their laws of different, you know what I mean? Way back in the beginning of the creation, if the laws of physics are slightly different, you can't replicate this chain of events that creates me. So there'll never be another patriarch. There'll never be another public eye. You know what I mean? So if patriarch dies, he's dead.
Which is really funny because if I'll take a second and talk about my sort of, it's not really multiverse within my comics because the whole thing is one structured universe. Every book I make is all in the same universe. But the thing is, I usually, as I say, I take my origin from basically Celtic mythology, which has other worlds all over the place, and you can enter in and sometimes, you know, even accidentally enter in. But I think of it, if you ever seen one of those videos where they explain time travel and you have basically offshoots of the main, you got one main universe and you got offshoots of this universe, I would say my universe would be the exact opposite of that kind of timeline. There is one main universe and you have these offshoots that exist, but they always flow back into the first one, not out of and then go by themselves. They always flow back into the first. So you have these other worlds which exist as part of the main universe, the main Earth, and they're just accessible, you know, through, you know, usually in Celtic mythology, you know, you go under the ocean and you can, or through a body of water or through a cave or over a bridge or something like that, or into this path that goes to nowhere and takes you to another world. But there are always other worlds that exist as a separate entity that is attached to the main world. and they're smaller versions. So usually, so basically, I have ideas for Crown the Destroyer, which is basically you get a hint of it from the trailer that I made, talking about the fact that he went to the Undying Lands. So the Undying Lands would be something that's sequestered and you can't really get to except for this one way, and then you can get out of it, but you can't go into a world that's all around the Undying Lands. You only have the Undying Lands. That's it. They exist by themselves, and you have to come back into our world if you want to go outside of those islands. Same with King Kong or something like that. It would say, for me, they're surrounded by this mist, the island of King Kong. It exists only in this place. You can only get to it in a very specific way. You can't actually go into another universe by being there. That would be my take on the multiverse for my stories. Anyways, it's not really the multiverse, but it's got a flavor to that.
The multiverse means like copies. So I have other dimensions, but not really a multiverse. You know what I mean? Like, to me, multiverse means replications of the same universe, but like, there's a vast universe with other facets. Like I consider like it, one of the characters, a magician character, but he describes it as it's a gem with many facets, but there's only one gem. But there's in each facet would be a plane of existence.
That's funny, because one of the things that I always think about, and one of the main sources of, for me, fantasy would be the Ultima games. I don't know if anybody knows about the Ultima games, but when Ultima actually, it went to Ultima 10, I think, and then they went Ultima Online. Ultima Online was basically it was the gem of Mondane, I think it was, and it got shattered into these 1,000 pieces, and each piece of this gem contained a different version of the same world, a different version of the first world. And so if you're on different servers for Ultima Online, because there are different servers for different countries, you would be in this gem shard, which was off of the main universe, basically, because it was the whole gem contained the universe, but when you shattered it, each of these pieces contained part of the universe or a copy of the universe, which I always thought was a brilliant idea for doing an online game.
In the way the universe works is they all radiate infinitely. So sooner or later, in whatever time space, each universe is going to hit another one. So and clash. And where the two universes actually meet it's like a tectonic plate. So, and then, and a third universe, because they all come from different dimensions. So all of these, it'll look like lines intersecting. Those are ley lines. So like on Earth, whenever you see ley lines, that's where you're literally, this plane of existence is meeting another plane of existence. And for the most, it doesn't matter. But like I got this idea from H.P. Lovecraft, what's the name? From Beyond. If you can actually perceive it, then you can interact with it. So like the character, the public eye, his whole thing is eyeballs, and he can see, and he's beyond. He explains it to people. I have moved beyond Plato's cave, and I can see things that are, what you exist to see as shadows. I could see the true form. So he can actually see the ley lines interacting, and because of that, he could pass through other dimensions. But so if you were walking with him, you would just see him disappear. You know what I mean? Like, because you can't perceive it. So so everybody thinks he's crazy because he'll see like monsters and stuff like that. And, and maybe that's what schizophrenics are seeing.
Rex, the way that I tie in time travel to my story is there's no specific kind of time travel, but each of these other worlds does operate in a time that actually is out of sync with our own, which is to say you can go into one of these other worlds and stay there for hundreds of years and then come back and, 5 minutes will be passed in New York City or something like that.
Like Narnia. But it time travel, like I think of it think of time travel like as a cable. There's a whole bunch of pieces of string that twine together to make each person is their own string, but they form a cable. If you manage to take your string and fray off and then go back in time, it's still only one string. You can't change anything. So like you can't go back in time and kill your grandfather. So if you do kill your grandfather, what happens is that string gets at the moment where it crosses, it gets plucked off, and then there's this little circular piece of string outside of the timeline that's just a paradox, and that's a fragile soap bubble. So anybody watching would just see you go back in time and disappear. You know what I mean? You're removed from the timeline because you're now in this paradox, and your grandfather would be like, didn't even notice. So you can't alter the past. And there's a supervillain who's questing for the one object that can change the past, the eternity object. There always has got to be an infinity stone or something like that in comic books.
Tony says Clark, Ashton Smith, Robert E. Howard, and H.P. Lovecraft are the only solid, consistent, and entertaining pulp writers of their day.
I haven't read. I read a couple of Howard. I read everything by Lovecraft. I've never read Clark Ashton Smith. I really should.
Honestly, I love Robert E. Howard. Obviously, if you've been around my channel, you know that. But there's one of the things I wanted to talk about, and probably will do if I get my own stream going in a couple of weeks. But what is it? I always forget the name. Is the Red Citadel, or I think is one of the first Robert E. Howard stories, and it is the best pulp fiction story. Like, basically, it was written for a magazine, so that's why I would classify it as pulp fiction.
The Hell one?
Yes. That is the best short story one of the best, if not the best short story I've ever read, because it, in some ways, first of all, this is why I always say Conan is a hero, is because he is a king at that point.
I'll be right back. I'm just gonna use the
bathroom. No problem. But this is why I say that Conan is a hero, because he's a king at that point. And let me see here, one second. He's a king at that point, but at the same time, he's offered, basically, he gets captured on the battlefield, and he's offered, riches beyond his belief, because they say, you're a barbarian, just take the riches and go and leave the kingdom to us. And he absolutely refuses. And he says, no, I'm not abandoning my people to tyranny. And that's what I would do if I took this money, and I'm not doing that. So they took him and they literally stuck him in hell. It's like they put him in a dungeon, but he tries to get out of this dungeon by going downwards, because he can't go forwards, upwards. And so he tries to go downwards. And this dungeon is basically a descent into hell. And to me, the way Robert E. Howard describes the creatures in this dungeon is just, it's basically a monster manual come to life, and it's horrific. To me, it is probably much more of a horror story, even though it starts off as an adventure story and then it goes back to being an adventure story. It's contains within it the most horrific horror story I have ever read. So to me, that would be the Pulp Fiction par excellence. Let's see.
Back.
All right, let's see what else here.
When you talk about that one so much, and it sounds so good.
Well,
I only read the first Conan story where he was already the king. If
anybody doesn't have time to read Robert E. Howard, there's a really good YouTube channel called the Cybrarian. It's basically the Sumerian and librarian put together, and he does readings of a lot of different things, including Robert E. Howard stuff, and he puts in some sound effects here and there, but he does a beautiful job. I loved in that first Conan story, I forget what it's called. I'm sure Tony knows the name of it, but like most people, my introduction to Conan was the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, which I still love. I don't care, I still love that movie. But somebody says to Conan that life is an illusion, and Conan says, well, if life is an illusion, I can feel it, I can touch it, so that means I'm an illusion, so it's real to me, so I'm going to take it as real. I just thought that was just like brilliant philosophy. I don't like Tony asked, what's your thoughts on Clive Barker? I never really liked Clive Barker, quite honestly. It was a bit too, I don't know, it just didn't click for me.
Right. All I know is the few movies, like that's the Hellraiser movies. Yeah, to me they were just gross outs. And I was not impressed with them.
Tony also says apparently Disney is going to remake the Rocketeer. Rocketeer is one of the things Rocketeer isn't really pulp. It's a I think somebody trying to recreate pulp, was it not?
It was Dave Stevens like homaging pulp era stuff. You know, but I like the Rocketeer, but yeah, I think it's going to be a black girl playing the Rocketeer now. Yay! It's not the Rocketeer.
Someone, I can't remember who it was. I was just watching a video basically saying that okay, you had the new Jason Momoa movie where he's, what is it, like Polynesian or I don't know what, New Zealand or something like that, and they're talking about all these tribal wars, and it's kind of an historic drama, and they're saying, how come none of these native people are, you know, Chinese, or how come there's no black ones there? How come they get to be homogenous and pure?
I've been saying it since the 90s, and people have been getting on my case since the 90s, but diversity just means there's too many white people. Nobody in the history of the world ever said that Nigeria was suffering from a lack of diversity.
Tony, you just brought up something I love to talk about. The way I always say his name right, but is the Farfel? Is it Farfed? I can't remember.
I would say Farfed.
But I love my introduction to these characters. First, there was the Walter Simonson stuff from DC Comics, but then there was the Mignola stuff, which I think was probably DC still. Not entirely sure though. It might have been Marvel, but it was beautiful. His stuff was amazing. And whenever I talk to serious artists and I tell them about what kind of styles I like, and when I bring up this book, half of them will say to me, I have that series sitting on the corner of my desk as inspiration. It is so influential for artists, even today.
Again, that was another character like Elric of Molybdeny, or however you say it, that I was introduced to Fafhrd and Grey Mouser from the Dungeons Dragons, DDs and Demigods, and I went out and I read all the books, Swords Against Wizardry, Swords Against Deviltry, and I got to say they were really good, but like towards the end, they kind of devolved into like S&M, you know, sex stuff. I don't know. I heard he was like a hard drunk, and I think he started writing like borderline softcore pornography in the last couple of books.
Just a question: the Demigods extension, is that the one where you could become like above level 10 and you start becoming a demigod yourself? I think my brother had that one.
The DDs and Demigods, I'm looking over here because I was over here for the longest time, but it was just D&D write-ups of all the like they took Norse mythology, Greek mythology, American Indian, and then they introduced me to Cthulhu mythology. I never heard of Lovecraft until that book. Elric of Melnibone, Fafhrd and Grey Mouser, and then, you know, Finnish mythology. So I went on a quest to read. Like at this point, when I got that book, I already knew Greek and Norse mythology, so I started reading up on Japanese, Chinese. Like I got all the books that they referenced in that. But no, there wasn't a path to godhood. There was another supplement later on that was a path to divinity. I forget what it was called, but yeah, this was the DDs and Demigods second edition, and then I had the first print. The second print didn't have Cthulhu or Elric of Melnibone. They didn't have the rights to it. They just, somebody said, yeah, we got the rights. They put the book in, and then the second edition, to me, got rid of the two most interesting parts of the book. So it's like $400-500 to buy that on eBay now.
And I'll know, Alessandro, that's a good quote. This is actually what I was thinking about doing my next Saturday video on. Progressive quote: "Art should comfort the disturbed and disturb the comfortable." Yeah, it's basically. Hopefully, I'll get to do this on Saturday, but I think that fits entirely with what I was thinking about the fact that the progressive, quote unquote, art is basically just a promotion of socialism, which is to take emotionally stable people and give them no footing to be emotionally stable anymore, and to rile people who are emotionally unstable so that they have nothing to cling to except for socialism.
Good point.
Sandra also says Progressive satires have the subtlety of a drunken elephant and are considered works of art protected by free speech. But if someone dares to satirize them, then it becomes vulgar and dangerous.
I'll say this: progressive humor is not funny for the sole reason that humor is steeped in truth. In order for something to be funny, you have to understand what's true. So, like George Carlin used to, excuse me, I'm almost choking to death, but George Carlin used to say, my job is to remind you of things you already knew but forgot to laugh at the first time. And then he would just make jokes about observations. And then there was the flip side to that would be Monty Python, where that was absurd is funny, but you got the fact that it was absurd because you knew what was true. Progressive is not funny because these people can't accept the truth. So their humor is based on untruth. So that could be anything. So there's nothing for me to connect to progressive humor because I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I'm trying to look at the world through observable truth. You know what I mean? So when I see progressive humor, it just rings as false and not funny. Does that make sense, RJ?
It makes complete sense, John. You just hit upon what Aristotle would talk about for comedy. That's exactly how he describes it. He's basically saying
I got
comedy
with Aristotle.
He basically says that comedy is a version of the grotesque and absurd, and the only way you can know that it's grotesque and absurd is if you have the standard of truth next to it, and you make that automatic. So that's basically comedic timing. You make that automatic switch in the person's brain from truth to absurdity, and it makes you laugh.
George says the deities and demigods from the 3rd edition, epic level. The Path to Godhood is epic levels handbook from 3rd edition.
That's what I was thinking of.
I missed that because I didn't get the 3rd edition. I stopped at 2nd edition.
So Tony says, RJ, do you think if Howard would have continued with his Cull stories, his depression might not have crippled him? Yes, it might have. I would say just because Cull was the story that he actually wanted to write. Conan, he was a good writer in the fact that people weren't attracted to Cull very much. They were attracted to Conan, which was his reinterpretation of Cull. So he wrote what the audience wanted. So yeah, I would say there's a possibility of that, certainly.
I don't know enough to comment either way.
Let's see. Scrolling down.
New York Cleric says, I don't think conservatives can reclaim the art. I think they can if they don't try to make it, this is right-wing conservative art. If I just think what conservatives need to do is just make art. Like RJ's making comic books. I'm making comic books. I'm conservative, but I'm not making. I'm humble enough to know that my comic book isn't, first off, the greatest thing ever, and second, it's not a cultural war bond, as your boy Zach Richard C. Meyer would say. It's just me wanting to make comic books the way I want to make comic books, tell stories that I want to tell, and I would like to think that anybody here watching this, I know this is RJ's audience, anybody who got I would like to think that you enjoy them and you could tell that it's something that I'm passionate about. I think that's the way to reclaim the art. But to make art for the sole purpose of winning, like, I'm going to show it to these people, I don't know, maybe that is possible, but I don't think you're going to make real art. And I think when it comes to art, people know what's passionate and what's not passionate, what's, made with real genuine love and what's not made with real genuine love. I mean, how many times have you seen just like a sitcom and you just like, this is just boilerplate nonsense, this isn't funny, or the stand-up comedian, the late night comedian talk shows, Stephen Colbert, you're just like, this is just like manufactured nonsense, this, so I think we could see through that. I think conservatives wrongly think that they're gonna make movies, like Blaze Media or something like that. They're going to make movies to own the libs. It's like you're making basically like after school religious specials that stunk when we were in 3rd grade and they stink now. Just make good movies. Like I think the Lord of the Rings, the Lord of the Rings trilogy is great conservative art made through passion and love for something, not to win people over. I don't know. You got
Well, I
me.
agree. I would say that the best way, if you want to make conservative art, you don't preach, and there's no reason for you to preach, because if you're a conservative, you would have a standard at the very least, if not a standard of truth, behind how your entire world operates. And the message of conservatism is just the fact that it makes sense and is, it's contiguous, and you have everything in a standard way that, basically, if an editor from, I don't know, 1950 to 1990 were to look at it, they would say, yeah, it's a consistent world. That's all you got to do, right? You don't have to preach about anything. It's just have to have the consistency of truth somewhere there behind it.
Like, if I may self-promote again, I'm working on a book. The Origin of Santa Claus is the working title, and it's going to be a biography of Saint Nicholas, the historical Saint Nicholas with all the cool stories, as told through the eyes of Odin, and Odin is trying to escape the Ragnarok cycle. It's basically, a love letter to Saint Nicholas, my favorite saint. I've always loved Santa Claus. I've always loved Saint Nicholas. So I'm doing something that I really love and I'm really passionate about, and I'm just going to be straightforward biography of Saint Nicholas, and great art by Renzo Rodriguez, great coloring by Oscar Carreno, but I'm not doing it to own anybody. I'm doing it because it's something I think it's going to be really good. That's the way to win. Don't do it, to spite somebody. Art through spite, you know what I mean? That ain't going to work. Yeah, I love watching that stuff. I just watched the Olympics of Electrical Workers or something like that on YouTube. It was like an hour and a half of guys doing what I do for a living, but at like such precision and speed that I would die if I worked like that 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. It was really fun.
Tony asked if I've ever read Umberto Eco's The Name of the Rose. It was an adaptation of the 1986 great movie with Sean Connery.
Yeah.
I don't think I have.
Yeah, it was what's his name's first movie too. Christian Slater, and then the guy from Amadeus. Why can't I think of his name? It was a good movie. I got to watch it again. It had Saint. I can't think of the guy's name. Yeah. If you want conservative art, all you have to do is take control of all the institutions and force people to read The Forgotten Man by Amity Shales. Yeah, that's what you got to do.
Nobody is going to do a plain version of Lord of the Rings again. First, the hippies claimed it, and now the corporate libs did.
Yeah, I saw an article. Straight white conservatives love Lord of the Rings, and here's why they got it wrong. By somebody from India. Yeah, we got it wrong. Tolkien was a devout Roman Catholic. And the whole origin of Arda is basically a retelling of Genesis. But he got it wrong. Yeah, we get it wrong.
The funny thing is, I always think about this little strange thing, is that Tolkien was a linguist, and so language was extremely important to him. And the thing is, if you want to talk about how devout he was as a Roman Catholic, when he lived through the 60s and the Second Vatican Council, and they changed it over so that the Mass was done in the vernacular instead of the Latin, he would not say anything at Mass except for the Latin. He would not answer the prayers in anything but Latin. That's how conservative he was. Not just a Catholic. He was such a conservative Catholic that he would only use Latin when he was basically worshiping. That was it.
And he supported Franco in the Spanish whatever. I keep getting the Spanish Revolution, because the other side was killing nuns. He was raised by a priest. His father died, and he fell in love with, forgive me, Edith. Is that his wife's name?
I don't recall.
Protestant, and the priest told him, don't have anything to do with her. Wait until you're 21 or something like that. Even though he was passionately in love with her, he cut off all ties with his wife because the priest told him to. And then when he turns 21, literally like a, why can't I think of the movie The Graduate? He ran and interrupted her wedding and said, I love you, let's get married now. The priest told me to cut it. Like, she was like, where have you been? He was like, the priest told me not to talk to you because you're Protestant. And she broke it off with him, got married to them, and she converted to Roman Catholicism, and next thing you know, he's writing Luther and Baron to her. But that, this was a guy that was in love and listened to the priest. But I got it wrong, because some guy from India wrote an article about how I'm misunderstanding Lord of the Rings and Tolkien and Narnia,
Tony, I'm not entirely sure what you're referencing. Is the Saudis potentially owning the rights of Lords of the Rings?
The Saudi Arabian company is. Oh, they own Lord of the Rings? I thought you were talking about buying Warner Brothers.
No, he says potentially owning Lord of the Rings. I don't know. But the funny thing is, I was just like not half an hour ago discussing this with someone, is the fact that, the swarthy individuals, which would be your Middle Eastern people and the dark-skinned people, all are on the side of Sauron in the Lord of the Rings. Right? You got to remember this. You got these people with the idiotic claims that they're black hobbits and all these kinds of stuff. Sorry, no, it's English countryside, and I always find it funny where people tried to take the map of Lord of the Rings and to superimpose it on, let's say, the map of Europe or the map of the world, because it's supposed to be the world. Because we know this from it's like the fact that one of the footnotes in even the Lord of the Rings or the Hobbit was the fact that they have the same constellations as us, because they call the Big Dipper the plow. But anyways, it's like, no, I'm pretty sure that what you need to do is take, like, say, the Lord of the Rings map and superimpose it on England, not on the world, because this is England. Right? This is his backstory for English mythology. That's about it.
Tolkien said that we right now are living in the seventh age of Middle Earth is in the third age, and he actually explained it. He said that after the Lord of the Rings, it's the fourth age, the age of man, and then the fifth age is Abraham, when Abraham had made the covenant with God, and then the sixth age is I think I forget what, but the sixth age is Jesus, and then the seventh age is I forget what it was, the end of the industrial era or something like that. So we are living in Tolkien's seventh age of man, and if you read the similarity, the shape of the earth does change. It changed a few times because of conflicts between the Valar and Morgoth and Sauron and things. So I don't know. I just think it's funny. And according to the kayfabe, we're supposed to believe that Tolkien discovered those books and they were written by some elf.
Yeah, exactly. It's supposed to be a found manuscript,
right?
which is why some people try to talk about the difference between, all the books for Lord of the Rings are supposed to be separated into two books to begin with, right? So there is a massive shift between the tone of the first book within the Fellowship and the second book within the Fellowship. It's explained by the fact that the first book of the Fellowship was written through manuscripts that were taken from Bilbo, whereas the second part was taken from manuscripts written by Frodo.
Let's say with the Hobbit, if once they get to Lake Town, it ceases to be a children's book, and it's written with a whole nother, style, almost like Lord of the Rings. Yeah, the Lord of the Rings, the three books, I think it's really 7 or 9 books, but they just put them together like that for ease of publication.
Which also, if you think about it in those terms, I would say you get into Return of the King, you're looking at stuff written by Merry, because he, goes on a quest afterwards to explore the stuff from Gondor and all that, the history, and to write actual histories, so it says within the Tolkien lore. Tony, what is my favorite pulp writer outside of Howard? I wouldn't say I have a favorite writer, but again, the character would be the Shadow, because he was handled by so many writers. That's why I would say I like different iterations of the character.
I gotta read the Shadow. Tony, Shadow novel, you told me and I forgot.
George says the Sardins But no, it saddens me. It saddens me that the War of the Rohirrim, the animation was top notch, but the story completely ruins it. Tony, I'm not, or George, I'm not entirely sure
Yeah,
what you're
there
talking.
was a war. There was a movie, an animated movie, War of the Rohirrim, that came out like last year or 2 years.
Really? Okay.
Where the animation was stellar. I didn't see it because the girl boss was Hammerhelm's daughter, who didn't exist, Hera Hammerhelm or something like that. And they made up a character and they made a movie about this non-existent woman. But you know what? Helm Hammerhand is one of the greatest characters of all of Tolkien's world. They could have made a movie about this. Was a guy who was fighting, they were trapped in Helm's Deep, and then he would wake up in the middle of the night and blow the horn, and then everybody knew, like, all the bad guys, all the siegers were like, uh-oh, and they would hide, and he would go out by himself and beat people to death with his fist. That's how he got the name Hammerhand, and then hide, and people would just wake up and the people would be dead, and every time they heard the horn blow, they would freak out, and then they would just find dead people. They couldn't find him, and then after like a month of this, they went and they found him just frozen, dead, just frozen. This was what the king did to save his people. After a good day of besieging, he would go out by himself unarmed and beat soldiers to death. Let's not tell his story. Let's make up his imaginary daughter and tell her story. It just drives me nuts.
So, Quench of Treasures, I would agree on the whole point. I was talking to John about this just a couple of minutes ago about, yes, leftist fiction is all about taking hope away from you so that you have nothing but the state to depend on. I completely agree.
Yeah, I don't even want to expound on this because it just gets me depressed.
Alessandro says, RJ, in many works of fiction today, Freudian justifications are often used to explain why people commit evil. In reality, however, they do it simply because they can. I would put another nail in that, Alessandro. And the fact is, even through conservative circles right now, you got all these through basically, what's his name, the Canadian guy, the professor, what's his name?
Jordan Peterson.
Jordan Peterson, yeah. He's always talking about not Freud, but what the heck is the name of the other? It talks about shadow work and all this kind of stuff.
Jung?
And he talks about Jung. He talks about the shadow form, which is Jungian, but Jung was actually a gigantic Gnostic. And so I would say there is this form of evil that is still not just Freudian, but coming through the back door of psychology. And you're absolutely right. It's justification for evil. It's this whole idea of shadow work is to take that dark part of you and make it a part of you and all that kind of stuff, where that's where you get into philosophers like Baudrillard and the French ones saying good doesn't exist unless it has evil next to it in order to show you that it's good. That's not the actual definition of good that either Tolkien would use or Christianity would use or most of Europe in its history would use. They would say, no, good exists, and it's good because it's good, not because of the fact that evil exists. Not in any way, shape, or form. Evil is not even a thing. It's just a turning away from the one principle that is the good.
One thing that the COVID time period really made me realize that if we gave the average citizen the ability to like spy on each other, you're not wearing a mask, and everybody became petty tyrants. Like maybe I'm skewed, but because I lived in New York and I just felt like everybody started minding everybody else. Now just imagine a world where like everybody got superpowers. I really do think that there would be one good person to every 5,000 villains. I don't know. COVID really has destroyed my concept of that people are intrinsically good. I think people we're civilized, and I think like if society broke down, I don't think the average person would go out and casually commit murder. But I do think if society broke down, I think people would become a lot nastier than we would imagine. Like I really am disillusioned by the innate nature of man. I think we need to be civilized, which is why I think right now we need to double down and raise our kids the right way, because you see all these videos of people fighting on airplanes, and just yesterday somebody lit another person on fire in the subway in Chicago. It's like we are a hair away from like the collapse of civilization. We need to double down. And there's nothing wrong with the 50s. Dad, as the father, mom is respectful. The kids wear dresses to church. My wife says this. It's like, why don't people dress up and go to church anymore? First off, they don't go. Second off, when they do go, they wear pajamas and stuff. We got to bring back all of this. We got to bring back civilization.
Yeah, it drives me insane as well. My brother went to Poland. Well, he's a soldier, so he gets transferred to Germany a lot, to Germany stations. You go from Germany to wherever. Anyways, he was in Poland for a little bit because he had a layover. And when he was in Poland, he said, because he dresses up really nice for U.S. going to mass, right? And he said when he was in Poland, he felt ashamed about his clothes when he was going to mass because everybody just dresses to the T.
The Sunday best.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Like I'm taking the subway and everybody's got their phones and they're talking. Or blasted a video and stuff like that. It's like that's civilization. Little stupid things like you get on an escalator and you just stand in the middle. No, move to the right so the people that are walking, because an escalator is supposed to help you walk up this. It's funny. I've been saying this for years, but if you get on an escalator and stop walking, you're a Democrat, because you get a little bit of help and you stop making an effort. Those are Democrats. When you get a little bit of help and then you still make the effort, that's what you're supposed to do. But like I'm working in the airport. There's a lot of those moving walkways, and then people just stop walking. And it's like, dude, I'm working. I'm on a clock. Get out of my way. Move to the right. So I zoom past people. But that is the breakdown of civilization. The little things add up to the big things. People talking on speakerphones, in public. People talking on their phones in public and walking slow so the other people can't get around. Walking on the wrong side of the side. You walk on the right, so so everybody's on the right. So we need to get back to this. I've definitely got to get out of the city. Escape from New York, a man called Plush says. Absolutely. I can't wait.
George says, yeah, orcs are now black and Mexicans, according to these crazies for Lord of the Rings. It's really funny because after Carl put out his, I think it was Carl that put out the first video on this, basically saying that we now have people invading the Shire because, he's all about Great Britain, England, St. George, all that kind of stuff. But a lot of people are running with it and basically saying, okay, so if the Shire suddenly has a drop in its population, should the hobbits, get a little more intimate with each other, or should they import orcs into the Shire? These kinds of things. Like, they're running with it in the opposite direction.
When I was reading the Bilbo Baggins' birthday party, I was realizing that the Shire suffers from a lack of diversity.
Well, that's because the Dunedain were so protective of it because of Gandalf. Is like they were sequestered in this place, not even knowing it, right?
Yep. I'm reading all the comments. A lot of good comments. Do you think that humor in dangerous situations hurts the hero stories? Not necessarily. I believe Batman sells the most because he embodies this. I like where Batman smiled, to tell you the truth. I like the Batman, like Neil Adams Batman would smile and crack a joke. There's nothing wrong with an appropriate joke, but we also run the risk of turning into MCU where there's never a serious moment because somebody's got to crack a joke. But I don't know. I think the Indiana Jones movies do it the best. He's serious, he's angry, he's murdering people left and right, and then he quips a funny joke. But that's the trick. Good timing, not too often, and actually witty, But I wouldn't mind if Batman made a joke every once in a while. Like, tell me who didn't laugh when Arnold Schwarzenegger ripped that guy's arm off and then threw the arm back at the guy and said, "Do you need a hand?" It was funny. You know what I mean? But it didn't crack a joke every 2 seconds. I'm trying to remember.
I also think that the original Spider-Man way of doing it was exactly right. Is like, I'm taunting my enemy at the same time to keep them off balance. That makes perfect sense.
Right.
I mean, especially if you got superpowers and
Also,
you're able to dodge.
Right. What works for Spider-Man works for Spider-Man. What works for Batman works for Batman. But yeah, Spider-Man's he literally has the ability to dodge bullets. So he's making Electro pissed off. So Electro's not electrocuting the average person in the street. You know, he's keeping Electro focused on him. That's great.
George is talking about how they try to make creatures that are evil into the good guys. Yes, it's a progressive trope, if you ask me. It's trying to humanize the bad guy, which you got in Disney with all these stupid things like the 101 Dalmatians stuff, and you got within comic books where they're trying to make Tombstone say, "Oh, poor me, I was picked on as a kid, therefore it justifies all my evil actions," and all this kind of stuff. It's ridiculous.
There's something to be said for an interesting backstory, a cool understandable motivation, and I like. I really liked reading Dr. Doom's story that, he was the gypsy, and then his father froze to death protecting him, and his mother died and everything. But still, he got a free education to college and chose to be evil. You know what I mean? Like that's all cool flesh and blood, but it doesn't justify anything Dr. Doom has done. Like, okay, Magneto, you were put in a concentration camp, because you were a gypsy, and then you got out of the job. But that doesn't mean you get to go out and kill people and discriminate and dominate. Two wrongs don't make a right. But I do like a well thought out, but there's also a lot of fun of just an unredeemable bad guy for the sake of being bad, like Anton Arcane. There's nothing redeemable about him. He's just a jerk. And he's one of my favorite bad guys.
Agreed. I think that there are some stories which are well served, like Tolkien stories, that evil is evil and there's no redemptive qualities in it whatsoever. Right. But at the same time, what we get away from today is the fact that, all these stories are trying to get you into the mindset of you don't have to be responsible for your actions. That's the whole point, is that, Dr. Doom is Dr. Doom because he made a choice and he's responsible for that. That's why he's a villain.
Right. Yeah, I'll keep my thought to myself. I don't need to get your channel demonetized, but like, if you're deemed, criminally insane and you can't control your actions, to me, that's more of a reason to put you someplace below the earth, because you're not going to contribute to society and you're incapable of controlling yourself. Okay, he can't control himself. He's going to kill more people. Let's let him back into society. No, that's more of a reason to not let this person join society. My favorite Joker story is none. I hate the Joker.
There was some interesting. Joker had his own book for a while in DC. Yeah. So those stories, I actually am sort of partial to those stories, just because it tried to explore the ridiculousness of his character more than to make him a hero, if you ask me.
I don't know. He's just the most overexposed, overrated character ever. I mean, I don't like clowns to begin with, so I'm naturally biased against him, but I just don't like the Joker.
Alessandro says, I have a preference for American comics. The Italian ones oscillate between hyper-realism and ridiculous comedy, while the American mainstream maintain a good balance. Okay, that's good to know. I am just being introduced to a lot of different, let's say, with my traveling, a lot of different books from around the world. As I was traveling through airport after airport, looking at the Pulp Fiction that they had, or sometimes comics and things like that, I thought, this is really interesting. It's stuff you would never even, I'm sure it's on the internet, but you never think to look for. So
I think this right here, this book that I'm touching right here, it's Tex Ritter. It's an Italian Western. Chuck Dixon says it's the best Western comic he's ever read. And this guy loves Western comics. So I don't know. Is it hyper? Maybe, okay, so maybe it's in the hyper realism category, because I don't think Tex Ritter would be a.
So basically, spaghetti western.
I guess I didn't read it yet. It looks great. I got it. Look at a list. I've been doing nothing but fulfilling my comics this week, so my eyes are getting bleary eyed from looking at that laptop over there. Yes, believe it or not, I'm fulfilling comics. Not everybody in crowdfunding, like. What's his name over there with the frog comic that made fun of me? People, crowdfunded. They fulfill their comics, Mr. Frog. Not Eric July. Eric July never said anything bad about crowdfunding. That's such a straw man argument. He said he sees that there could be problems, and he said there are some problems, and he doesn't want to deal with it, so he's doing it a different way. Other people straw man that argument and then made a career out of bash. And then the funny thing is, they're falling apart. Sorry for derailing the chat.
No, I'm trying to get through some of this chat here, trying to read. Tony says, have I ever read Franco-Belgian Asterix? Yes, Asterix Gaul. I did take some French when I was in school, and that was our introduction to here. If you want to learn French, because we'll give you something very lighthearted and easy to read, so they gave us Asterix to read.
Yep, I got Asterix somewhere in this pile. I'm trying to look for it. I think it's underneath the text reader. I read Asterix since I was a kid. My friend's dad was a archaeologist, and he was always traveling all around the world, and he would always bring comics from around the world. And Asterix was one of them that we read. You would get English editions.
He also says, what are your thoughts on humanizing Frankenstein monster? I just railed against this. A lot of people are saying that it's not a bad movie if you're talking about the new adaptation that just came out. But to me, I'm someone who, when I was a teenager, read Frankenstein, read Dracula, read all those old novels. And I hate the fact that people take Dracula, the book, and try to make it all about Dracula, because it's not. It's about the people hunting down Dracula, and Frankenstein is about the scientist, not about the monster, and they're trying to make it all about the monster. To me, that does a disservice to the original writer and the original author of the book and what it was supposed to be about. You can make a good story, it appears, when you're concentrating on it, but still, I think it's disservice to focus on a flesh golem rather than the man who actually created the stupid thing.
I didn't see the movie. I like Guillermo del Toro. I want to see it. If anything, his movies look beautiful, whether you like them or not. I got to see it. Is it good, Tony? Did you see it? Did you like it?
Salty Cracker is here. Oh no, Salty Traveling. Says, what you want heroism written very well current year. David Pepos? Space Ghost. Oh yes, I did see. Yeah, I did see your video about Space Ghost.
I picked up a few of them. They look really good. I always like Space Ghost. There's something about that costume that is just so cool. And the Phantom Cruiser.
What's his name agrees with you?
But I didn't read them yet, but they look good. Everybody's been raving about them, so I'll check them out. I mean, obviously, I bought them. I haven't read any comics this whole week.
All right, I'm scrolling down throughout the chat, see if we. There we go. Because we've been talking for about an hour and 15, and usually we like to go for an hour. But
a man called Plush says, "Yeah, Austin Powers. Yeah, he says, freedom comes with responsibility," and that to me is, in a nutshell, that's the difference between conservatism and liberalism. Liberalism is, free from consequences, and conservative is freedom. But you got to deal with your own consequences. And, the liberals want their cake and eat it. And when I'm saying modern definition, I guess I should say progressives, because up until like 2 years ago, I used to say I was a classical liberal. Now I don't even want to say that anymore because the word has been tainted. But yeah, like you want everybody to have babies and then you want the babies to starve. No, that's not what I want. I want, forgive my vulgarity, but 90% of everybody's problems could be solved by having sex with a better quality partner. I said that nice, RJ, not the way I normally say that. Every once in a while I curse in front of RJ and I feel wrong.
I would agree with you, John. I am very, not disheartened, but the Sisyphean task that young people have today to find a good partner is just, I don't know. I'm glad that there are, let's say, like church groups and things like that are starting to make a comeback so people can actually have a place to go.
I heard, where did I read this? That even in New York, the churches are filling up.
Oh yeah, New York is one of the places where, you'll say traditional Catholicism is actually making a huge comeback.
Yeah, yeah.
As says, in the spirit of making comics fun again, what was the last fun good comic you read? John's actually, quite honestly.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I was gonna. I immediately picked up a comic that I didn't like. The unbelievable has happened. A Jack Kirby comic that I don't like. I just don't like.
Commandi?
I don't like it. It's just look, ideas. Boom! I'm gonna shotgun ideas onto a piece of paper. But at the same time, he was doing OMAC, which is probably my favorite thing Jack Kirby.
Exactly.
Except for Fantastic Four. But like like I've been talking about these old X-Men's, but trying to see. I read this. This was excellent for Savage Sword of Conan.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But is there anything new here? I'm like the only champion of this Batwoman run. This is just so good. Yes, she's a lesbian, but it's like they do it correctly. Like it's a woman character. I say it all the time. If you got Superman, I'll accept Superwoman and I'll accept Superboy, or Supergirl. After that, there's too many. I don't want 5 versions of the same character. They could be a male, a female, boy child, girl child. That's the most I'll accept. This Batwoman was so well written, and I gotta say the villains are really original. So and the art was outstanding. I've been reading these epics. These are pretty good. Proto Dreadstar stuff. This is everything that I've been reading lately. Why did I buy this? This is Girl Powers. They should just name this comic Girl Power. I got suckered because I really like the original. Oh, here you go, RJ. John Carter World.
There you go.
Yep. So that's what I've been reading. It's funny. This actually made my wife smile. This comic was the first and only comic I ever bought to speculate. I thought this was.
Do you have that one?
Yeah,
I have that one from of old.
Yeah, this I bought this on the other. You could see this sticker that I put on because I was getting ready to sell this for a fortune, and it's like a little write up in my 4th grade handwriting. It's so terrible. I misspelled John Carter, Warlord of Mars, even though I'm reading it right here. It just shows you how stupid I am. And I bought 2 copies, and I'll show this to my wife. She was like getting teary eyed. And I love this little sticker that I put on it. Can you see it? It says, it's got the Sugar Smacks frog, and it says, "This is one of my prized possessions." Yeah, I've been reading a lot of old comics the past couple of weeks. So, anything you've been reading, RJ? You said you like my comic.
Oh yeah. What am I reading right now? I'm reading Lord of the Rings over again. At the first book of Return of the King right now, and then from that I'm moving on to Silmarillion, probably Lost Tales and stuff like that. Besides that, I'm also reading one of the Robert E. Howard books for Conan. I can't remember what the heck it is off the top of my head. I'm also trying to get into reading more Dashiell Hammett for basically give me more inspiration for Fade to Blue. So, but for comics, yeah, not a whole lot right now. I'm trying to get more into established series, which is great, which is why I kind of want to talk about pulp stuff.
Yeah, I got back, as you can see, backlogs of comics. But this week I've been working a lot and fulfilling my comics. So I haven't really been reading. I sit in that chair and just I don't know, RJ, did you fulfill your own comic? It is just tedious. I mean, I enjoy it. I'm not complaining. You got to do it, and it saves you money to do it yourself. But it's just tedious work. And last time I did it, I was on furlough, so I could wake up, have my coffee, take a break. Now I got to do it because I'm working at the same time.
Yeah, I did the first one and it was exciting. I did the second one and it was like, this is not something I want to do again. All right, well, we've been talking for about an hour and 20 minutes and it's getting pretty late, so I think we'll leave it there. Even though Ryan has a good question, we'll leave it. Sorry, Ryan. And anything you want to finish off with, John?
If I'm seeing a lot of names that I've never seen before. If you could go to Fund My Comic and check out Heroic Tales 2, it's a lot better than issue number 1. Chuck Dixon read issue number 1. He says it's a great introduction. He said that I understand the language of comic books really well, and you look forward to number 2. I sent him number 2. Haven't heard from him yet, but we're already 1/9 into Patriarch number 1, which will be my next crowdfunding book, and it's every issue I think I'm getting better and better. I mean, that's the goal, right? To get better at it. So, if I can, just please consider checking out Heroic Tales 2. And you can also get issue number 1. I'm running out of issue number 1, which is a good sign. I printed out enough so that if I sold all of them, I would double the money that I put into it. So I'm getting to that point. So let's hope. I already got
I think John has the right mindset, which is why I love talking to John. It's that you see a lot of these people out here selling comics, and it's not about I want to get better at making comics. It's how much can I make from this? And that's not the right mindset if we want to rejuvenate comics. The right mindset is one John has is how can I become better at actually doing this for the next time I want to do it? So to me, that is probably the best way to finish the stream. And yes, the link is in the description for John's book. If you want to go over to Fund My Comic. And also there's a link in the description for Fade to Blue. Both of those trailers we played at the first. Fade to Blue is my new book that will be coming out. We're just finishing up the third book for it. It's basically going to come out in floppy, but I want to have 3 done before I put it out there. And I'm hesitating at the same time because I'm trying desperately to get Crom the Destroyer out for anybody who's still waiting for Crom the Destroyer. Anyways, that's where we'll leave it. I want to thank everybody, and don't forget, links are in the description for both John's book and the link for my new book. And with that, I will just say thank you to all the chat and everybody who is going to show up later on and watch this stream. And I will see you all again on Saturday. I don't know if we will be back again next Wednesday. We will try, but it all depends on scheduling and a whole lot of things going on in both of our lives.
Next week, my work schedule is normal for the holidays. They're not doing just a regular. I'll be home at normal times. If you would like to do comic book team up next week, I'm available.
When's Thanksgiving? On Thursday?
Thursday, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see what we can do for next week. And thank you very much once again, everyone. And we'll see you all later.
And thanks a lot, Audrey. This was fun. It was nice to do a surprise stream. It made my night.
Thanks. Okay, bye.
Bye, everybody.